time of harvest. In turn, Bethlehem, in fact, literally translates to house of bread. Bethlehem is thus a reference to the constellation Virgo, a place in the sky, not on Earth. There is another very interesting phenomenon that occurs around December 25th, or the winter solstice. From the summer solstice to the winter solstice, the days become shorter and colder. And from the perspective of the northern hemisphere, the sun appears to move south and get smaller and more scarce. The shortening of the days and the expiration of the crops when approaching the winter solstice symbolized the process of death to the ancients. It was the death of the sun. And by December 22nd, the sun's demise was fully realized. For the sun, having moved south continually for 6 months, makes it to its lowest point in the sky. Here a curious thing occurs. The sun stops moving south, at least perceivably, for 3 days. And during this 3-day pause, the sun resides in the vicinity of the Southern Cross, or Crux, constellation. And after this time, on December 25th, the sun moves 1 degree, this time north, foreshadowing longer days, warmth, and spring. And thus it was said, the sun died on the cross, was dead for 3 days, only to be resurrected or born again. This is why Jesus and numerous other sun gods share the crucifixion, 3-day death, and resurrection concept. It is the sun's transition period before it shifts its direction back into the northern hemisphere, bringing spring and thus salvation. However, they did not celebrate the resurrection of the sun until the spring equinox, or Easter. This is because at the spring equinox, the sun officially overpowers the evil darkness, as daytime thereafter becomes longer in duration than the night, and the revitalizing conditions of spring emerge. Now, probably the most obvious of all the astrological...
Now, let's stop here for a second. So what they did was, they took the real messenger of God, whose name was actually Isa, and they combined his story with their pagan story about the sun, and they created a deity for people to worship. Okay, because they needed to appease the pagan Romans at that time. And they had to appease those followers of Isa. So they took this pagan story about the sun and combined it with Isa and created a god. And this is what this system has done. All right? But now watch. I'm gonna show you.
So this was obviously after Isa was dead.
3,000,
Right. Exactly.
3,000
Right.
years before
Right.
Christ, BC.
Okay? Because this story, this is a pagan story. You know, an old pagan story. Because of their adoration for the sun. Okay? They love the sun. Okay? And you know, Allah tells you in the Quran, you know, that there were people out there that were worshiping.
Yeah, sun worshipers.
They were sun worshipers.
Yeah.
The Bible tells you that there were worshipers of the sun. Okay? So let's look at this next piece, because
symbolism around Jesus regards the 12 disciples.
now, remember they had the movie The Da Vinci Code, right? So they had this story where, you know, Jesus, you know, had married with Mary Magdalene and all this stuff, and it's all this secret, you know, it's a bunch of malarkey. All right. This painting is by who? The Last Supper. This famous painting is by who? Leonardo da Vinci, right? Da Vinci was a Mason. Okay. And all he did was draw a depiction of the cross of the zodiac. All right? Now, let's use our intellect and figure this out. Now watch. You have the sun in the middle, right? Which is Jesus, right? You have a group of 3 here, a group of 3 here, right? Group of 3 here, and at the end, you got a group of 3. Okay? And why is that a woman? Because we knew that, you know, he had 12, well, supposedly 12 male disciples, right? So the big thing was, oh, well, that's a woman, right? But why is that a woman?
Is that his mother?
Think about what it's a picture of. This is the cross of the zodiac. So all this is Virgo.
Oh, Mary.
Oh, okay.
Virgo the Virgin. the female of the zodiac. Okay? So that's all Da Vinci was portraying right here, was the cross of the zodiac.
A couple of them dudes look like women.
Yeah, I mean, well, but you know how their style of
Yeah,
drawing, you know, men feminine. But I mean, you
Yeah.
can clearly see that these are men, though.
Right.
You know, and this is a woman, okay? And those, you know, those three are men, and those three in the corner, men, okay?
They are simply the 12 constellations of the zodiac, which Jesus, being the sun, travels about with.
Now, there's no truth to it. Got this picture dating back to 11th century A.D. Jesus in the zodiac as the sun surrounded by the constellations. Okay? So there's a big difference between Jesus and Isa. Isa was the messenger of God.
In fact, the number 12 is replete throughout the Bible. This text has more to do with astrology than anything else. Coming back to the cross of the zodiac, the figurative life of the sun, this was not just an artistic expression or tool to track the sun's movement. It was also a pagan spiritual symbol, the shorthand of which looked like this.
How many times have you seen that?
Mm-hmm.
You drive past a church and you see the cross with the circle in it. So if there's no truth to it, explain the circle. What is this circle about? What is this circle for? Okay?
This is not a symbol of Christianity. It is a pagan adaptation of the cross of the zodiac.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This is why Jesus and early
It's clear as day.
cult art is always shown.
Now, even in this picture here, right? You have this IC here. What does the IC stand for?
Don't give me the
Right.
line.
Now watch. The IC stands for actually Isus Christos,
Oh yeah.
right? Because you got to remember,
Right.
there was no
No
J
J's.
in the Hebrew language. There's
Mm.
no J in the Aramaic language. There's no J in the Greek language. And we use our alphabets to create our words, right? So if there's no J, how can you have Jesus? Okay? His name was Isa. And that's closer to what his name was, Isus. I went to a Greek eatery, and they had a picture of Jesus on the wall. So I said to the lady, I said, "What's his name?" And she said, "Oh, Christos." I said, "No, what's his name?" Oh, she said, "Oh, Isus." Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, get your hands on a 1611 version of the King James Bible. Okay? In the 1611 version of the Bible, there's no letter J's. All right? You'll see it in there, I-E-S-U-S, Isus. That's exactly how it's depicted in the 1611 version of the King James Bible.
So who threw the J in there?
When all the books got
Yeah.
missing.
Yeah. Who did that?
When the books got
Okay,
missing,
but-
they wrote the book over.
The thing is that, and I had a piece to really go over the name and you know, what was done, but for some reason this is not acting right. But, very interesting, okay? But watch this.
Head on the cross, for Jesus is the Son of God, the light of the world, the risen Savior who will come again, as it does every morning.
And you got to think about some of the verses in it. It sounds like the sun, okay?
The glory of God, who defends against the works of darkness, as he is born again every morning, and can be seen coming in the clouds, up in heaven, with his crown of thorns or sun rays.
It's just like one of the miracles that they deal with in the Bible. It talks about him walking on water. And
The Son of God.
I showed my mom this video, and she was like, oh, wow. It was a scene where it was like the sun rays on the water. So it's like actually walking on the water. The sun walking on the water. Okay. But the thing is that we have to understand what has been done. This guy, I don't like his conclusion of what he's trying to get to, because what he's trying to do is make it seem like there is no God. Right?
It comes with the sun.
Right. But see, his thing is, Christianity has outlived its usefulness. So now they're trying to destroy it. Okay, it's basically done what they wanted it to do. So now they're trying to destroy it. So now they're bringing out information that they know about it to kind of destroy it. Okay.
So the new religion is materialism and
Well,
Idols and worship.
Right.
idols and
right, but not only that,
Worship the money
but
and the
actually,
people.
I mean, you really have to think about it. A lot of the teachings that's going out now is, people are still talking about sun worship, whether you believe it or not. A lot of these secret societies and stuff, that's what they deal with. They deal with sun worship. They get into the worship of Lucifer. Okay? But I want you to see this next piece, all right? Because I'm going to show you just how this sun thing, how deep it goes. Okay?
Here's the way they look at it. Here.
Now this is William Cooper. This is the guy that wrote the book, Behold the Pale Horse. And he revealed a lot of information in that book, okay? But I want you to listen to it, because he did a lot of research on the secret societies and understanding what they had done. But check this out. Listen to what he has to say.
Their metaphor for the end of innocence. Adam and Eve were held prisoner in the Garden of Eden by an unjust, cruel, and vindictive God. Lucifer, through his agent Satan, set man free from this garden by giving him the gift of intellect. Through the use of intellect, man will conquer the earth, will conquer nature, and will himself become God. It's taught in every Masonic temple in this land, every secret brotherhood, every secret society, every mystical temple, every occult organization teaches the Luciferian philosophy.
It says William M. Cooper was the author of Behold the Pale Horse, a fascinating book that exposed government corruption, secret societies, and UFOs. He was murdered by Arizona police November 5th, 2001. Too much information.
Yeah, he talking too much.
Before his murder, he produced several shortwave radio broadcasts which offer his listeners a wealth of information and insight into secret societies. We will use Mr. Cooper's information to break down some of the lyrics from a newly released song, all right? This is actually an older song. Damn.
This for the soldiers that see the sun at midnight. You dig?
The Illuminati, which literally means illumined ones, they are all one and the same, as you will come to know. They have ruled from the shadows, you see, and they call themselves the guardians of the secrets of the ages. And their first religion was called astrotheology, or the worship of the heavens. And their first object of worship was the sun.
This for the soldiers that see the sun at midnight. You dig? This
Now, both of them are Freemasons. Okay.
soldiers that see the sun at midnight.
It says, interestingly enough, another rap star has already told us the sun is God. Now watch.
Desire is better than love in Miami as we do. We on the check in. Look at the sun, look at God, look at me and God. Look at me and God. Don't we look good together, people? Me and God, baby.
The check and look at the sun, look at God, look at me and God. Look at me and God. Don't we look good together, people? Me and God, baby.
Okay.
Now this is a biblical verse where it talks about the sun worship. And he said, and he brought me into the inner court of the Lord's house, and behold, at the door of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were about 5 and 20 men with their backs toward the temple of the Lord, and their faces toward the east, and they worshiped the sun towards the east. Okay. Now,
But we
That's-
only pray for direction.
Hmm.
now, let's look at this real quick. Because now we have this is a verse from the Quran, all right? Talking about sun worshipers. And Surah Namah, chapter 27, verse 24. It says, and I found her and her people worshiping the sun besides Allah. Shaitan has made their deeds seem pleasing in their eyes and has kept them away from the path, so they receive no guidance. So we have to start making connections and start bringing the God's truth out. Because these people, they are about the occult, they're about paganism, okay? And we have our children idolizing them, okay? You know, looking up to these people. And they're very negative towards the spiritual development of
What they say
our
out of
children.
their mouth is,
Right. Pure.
and then the kids like, I can rap to that, I can sing to that.
Yeah, 'cause they got a nice beat behind it. You
But see,
know,
we
real
have to go-
catchy tune.
Yeah, but we have to go beyond the beats
Mm-hmm.
and show them
We gotta
the
get
lyrics
rap
and what
with
they're
true
saying.
rap
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right,
for the rationalization of the information they're interpreting.
right. But now it's very funny because I want you to hear some.
Okay, that's something for the babies. And so, led to her death by the beat.
Fast forward, that's a little bit.
Look,
I want you to listen to what this guy is saying.
for the Lord God is a sun and a sheep. The Lord will give grace and glory, no good thing will he withhold from them that walk upright. This is in the Bible. What they praying to? It says, for God is a sun and a sheep. Well, if he is a shield, he ain't shielding the peckerwood. He killing the peckerwood. But unto you that fear my name shall the sun of righteousness arise with healing in his wing. Now, the difference between this one, this verse, and this verse, look at Psalms. It's a lowercase s. But when you come over here, it's an uppercase s. You only capitalize something if it's a person, place, or a thing. You figure it out. You figure it out.